The paper tore with a sound that echoed through the auditorium like a gunshot. One moment, I was walking across the stage, accepting my Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the dean, and the next, my mother had stormed up from the audience, snatched my diploma, and ripped it clean in half. "Daughters should marry doctors, not become them," she announced to the stunned crowd of graduates, families, and faculty. This is what happens when girls get ideas above their station. The auditorium fell silent. 500 people watched as my mother stood there in her Sunday best, holding the pieces of my degree like victory flags. Behind her, my father rose from his seat and started a slow clap. Alone, the sound echoed pathetically through the silence. My sister, Veronica, filmed it all from her seat, no doubt planning to post it as another example of my embarrassing need for attention. My brother, Marcus, just smirked, probably thinking about how this would affect his chances with the medical student he'd been stalking. The dean, Dr. Patterson, found her voice first. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to leave the stage. I'm her mother. I have every right to stop her from making a mistake," Mom retorted. "Security," Dr. Patterson said quietly. As campus security moved toward us, Mom turned to me with triumph in her eyes. "You can play dress up all you want, but you'll never be more than what you are, a girl who should be grateful for any man who will have her." I stood there in my cap and gown, magna cum laude cords around my neck, nursing pin gleaming on my chest, and smiled. Not the forced smile I'd worn through 24 years of family dinners where my achievements were ignored while Marcus C+ in biology was celebrated. Not the tight smile from when they'd refused to co-sign my student loans because nursing school is for girls who can't get husbands. This was a real smile because she had no idea what I'd been planning. No idea what I knew. No idea that she'd just given me the perfect opening for my final performance as their daughter. "Thank you," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying through the sound system, clear and calm. "Thank you for showing everyone exactly who you are." Security reached us then, escorting my mother off stage while she screamed about ungrateful daughters and wasted investments. Dad followed, shouting about lawsuits and defamation. Veronica and Marcus slunk out behind them, probably already crafting the family group chat messages about my attention-seeking behavior. Dr. Patterson handed me a new diploma from the stack of extras. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. Are you all right?" "I'm perfect," I said, meaning it. "Could I have a moment?" She nodded, and I turned back to the microphone. The audience was riveted, phones out, recording everything. Good. I wanted witnesses. I want to dedicate this degree to every daughter who was told she should shrink herself to make others comfortable. To every girl who heard, "Marry rich," instead of "dream big." And to the patients I'll serve who deserve healthcare providers who fought to be here, not ones who married their way into proximity to medicine. The applause was thunderous. I walked off that stage knowing it was the last time I'd ever have to perform for my family's approval. But I wasn't done. Not even close. See, the thing about being the family disappointment is that you become invisible. They didn't notice when I got a job at the same hospital where Dad had his minor procedure 5 years ago. They didn't pay attention when I mentioned doing my clinical rotations at Mom's regular clinic. They certainly didn't think twice about using me as their medical translator when they didn't understand their diagnoses. "It's just high blood pressure," Dad would say, tossing me his medication list. "Explain what these pills do." "Your thyroid levels are off," Mom would complain. "The doctor uses too much jargon. Make it simple for me." So I did. I explained everything. I took notes. I filed it all away. And when they made me their emergency contact and healthcare proxy, since you insist on this medical nonsense, might as well be useful, I accepted gracefully. They had no idea they'd just handed me the keys to their kingdom. The morning after graduation, I woke up to 47 messages. The video had gone viral. "Mother destroys daughter's nursing degree at graduation" was trending. My mother, who'd spent her life cultivating an image of Christian perfection, was now the face of parental narcissism across social media. The family group chat was in meltdown mode. "Mom, take down the video now. You've humiliated us," one message read. "Dad, this is defamation. I'll sue everyone who shares it," another said. Veronica, way to make graduation about yourself again, came a third. Marcus, my girlfriend saw this. Thanks for ruining my relationship, read another. I responded with a single message. Actions have consequences. Also, I'm no longer available as your medical interpreter. Best of luck understanding your prescriptions. Then I blocked them all and went to work. My first shift as a licensed nurse was in the cardiac unit. By pure coincidence, or perhaps karma, my father's cardiologist worked there. Dr. Rodriguez recognized me from my clinical rotations. Congratulations on graduating, he said. Though I heard there was some drama at the ceremony. Family doesn't always support medical careers, I said diplomatically. He nodded knowingly. Your father canceled his follow-up appointment. Said he doesn't need some overpaid pill pusher telling him how to live. I wasn't surprised. Dad had been non-compliant with his medications for years, convinced his high blood pressure was just stress from having an ungrateful daughter. He'd never followed a low-sodium diet, never exercised, never took his condition seriously. That's concerning, I said. His last EKG showed irregularities. I know, but without HIPAA violations, there's nothing we can do if he won't come in, Dr. Rodriguez replied. 2 months later, Dad had his first heart attack. Minor, but a warning. When the ER called his emergency contact, still me, because he never bothered to change it, I professionally informed them I was no longer able to serve in that capacity and provided Veronica's number. She had no idea what any of the medical terms meant. Couldn't understand the discharge instructions. Didn't know his medication history. Dad came home with a stack of papers he couldn't interpret and a daughter who thought cardiac catheterization was something about catheters. The second heart attack came 6 months later, more serious. This time, Marcus was the emergency contact. Marcus, who fainted at the sight of blood and thought stent, was spelled stint. Meanwhile, Mom's untreated thyroid condition worsened. The medication she'd stopped taking because it made her feel funny had been keeping her levels stable. Without it, and without someone to explain why she needed it, her symptoms multiplied: fatigue, weight gain, depression. All things she blamed on my betrayal rather than her medical noncompliance. I watched from a distance as their health declined. Not maliciously. I would have helped if they'd asked, if they'd apologized, if they'd shown even a glimpse of recognition that I was a qualified medical professional, not just a disappointment with delusions. But they were too proud to ask the daughter they'd humiliated for help. Instead, they found a new doctor. Dr. Wells, fresh out of residency, eager to please. He didn't know their history of noncompliance. Didn't push when they insisted they were basically healthy. Didn't question when they said their previous doctors were alarmists. I knew because Veronica complained about it in Instagram stories, thinking her privacy settings were better than they were. Parents' new doctor is so much better. Doesn't lecture them like the others. Says they know their bodies best, she posted. A year after graduation, I was promoted to charge nurse. My colleagues respected me. My patients trusted me. I published 2 papers on patient advocacy and family dynamics in healthcare. The video of my graduation had become a case study in nursing schools about professional resilience. That's when Marcus showed up at my hospital. Not as a visitor, but as a patient, 28 years old, presenting with chest pains and shortness of breath. The triage nurse didn't know he was my brother when she assigned him to my unit. I walked into his room to find him pale, sweaty, and terrified. "Sarah," he said, his eyes widening. "You work here." "I'm the charge nurse," I said professionally. "I see you're experiencing chest discomfort. How long has this been going on?" "I don't. I need a real doctor," he stammered. "You have one. Dr. Kim will be in shortly. I'm here to do your initial assessment." "I want someone else," he insisted. I nodded. "I'll get another nurse. But first, are you taking any medications? Any family history of heart disease?" He laughed bitterly. "You know Dad's had 2 heart attacks. You probably caused them with your stunt at graduation." "Stress doesn't cause heart attacks," I said. "Untreated hypertension, high cholesterol, and ignoring medical advice does." "Are you taking any medications?" "I don't need medications." I'm not old like Dad, he replied. I documented his words carefully. Patient refuses to provide medication history. Denies taking any medications despite family history of cardiac disease. Appears anxious and diaphoretic. Another nurse took over his care. His EKG showed the same irregularities Dad's had shown years ago, the same warning signs, the same genetic predisposition that ran in our family. The difference was I'd known to get tested early, knew what to watch for, knew how to manage it. Marcus didn't. He'd spent so long believing medical knowledge was for people who couldn't marry into success that he'd ignored his own body's warnings. Dr. Kim prescribed the same medications Dad should have been taking. Marcus left with discharge papers he didn't understand and a referral to a cardiologist he wouldn't follow up with because doctors just want to sell pills. The final piece fell into place 6 months later. Mom collapsed at her book club, a full thyroid storm, a life-threatening condition caused by severely untreated hyperthyroidism. It was completely preventable if she'd just taken her medication and followed up with her endocrinologist. She was brought to my hospital, but I wasn't working that shift. By the time I heard about it, she was in the ICU, and Veronica was hysterical in the waiting room. Why didn't anyone tell us it was this serious? She cried to anyone who would listen. Why didn't the doctors explain better? They had for years. But without someone to translate medical speak into language the family would accept, without someone to remind them that their bodies weren't invincible just because they felt fine, without someone to advocate for their health when they wouldn't advocate for themselves, they'd ignored every warning. I visited once. Mom was stable but weak, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her in the hospital bed. "Sarah," she whispered. "You came." "I'm checking on a patient," I said. "Mrs. Johnson in the next room asked me to see if you needed anything." She started, then stopped. Even now, even like this, she couldn't say it. Couldn't admit she needed the daughter she'd tried to diminish. "The doctors, they use so many words," she said. "I don't understand what's happening to me." "Your thyroid condition went untreated for too long," I said simply. "The medication you stopped taking was preventing this. Now you'll need more intensive treatment and careful monitoring, possibly for the rest of your life." "But I felt fine," she protested. "Feeling fine and being fine aren't the same thing," I replied. "That's why we rely on medical expertise, not just feelings." She turned away. "I suppose you're happy seeing me like this." "No," I said honestly. "I'm sad. This was preventable. You had access to excellent care, medications, and information. You had a daughter who became a nurse. All the resources were there. You chose pride over health. Daughters should marry doctors, not because..."
Querida, podemos conversar? Estou com saudades. As coisas têm sido difíceis. Talvez possamos nos encontrar para um café, só nós dois. Sua voz soou mais baixa, de alguma forma menos segura. Parte de mim queria acreditar que ela havia mudado, que finalmente havia entendido. Mas então percebi que ela ainda não havia se desculpado. Não houve reconhecimento do que ela fez, nem assunção de responsabilidade.